Hey guys, Walls here. Happy Friday. All right, so this week and a little bit of last week was all about nonfiction, and we're going to go through kind of review the key concepts and ideas, apply them to Living Well, Living Good by Maya Angelou, and get a little bit into what we're going to be doing next week. So let's go. Now you'll have this PowerPoint there for you in Google Classroom. Let's see, let's hide this. There we go. In Google Classroom. So you can click on these links and stuff. So here's our goal for next week. We want to take an assessment over Living Well, Living Good and the Tucson Zoo. We haven't read the Tucson Zoo yet. It'll be a handout. Looks like this. If you are Reconnect at home and doing paper packets, I've already put it in the paper packet along with Living Well, Living Good. So we want to take both of these texts eventually and connect them to Of Mice and Men while talking about characteristics of nonfiction, main idea and supporting details, and structure and purpose. So, Of Mice and Men, if you finish the book, has a tragic ending. We kind of see how it was going that way. Steinbeck structured that book in a specific way, with five acts, so to speak. The third act is chapter 3, essentially, where Candy's dog is put down, and there's the fight between Curly and Lenny, and then that's kind of like the big conflict in the middle of the play, the novel, and then Act 4, you have Curly's wife and Lenny in the barn, and Lenny gets scared and accidentally kills her, and that sets chapters 5 and 6 into motion, where eventually George has to make a horrible, horrible decision. We're going to connect that to Living Well, Living Good. So be thinking about what are the main ideas of Living Well, Living Good, and how did Maya Angelou get those ideas to us? Okay, so that's kind of what we get with structure and purpose. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of this presentation. So the Tucson Zoo is another personal essay. It's written by a guy, Lewis Thomas. He was a scientist, a medical doctor, I believe, and a scientist, and he really liked to write about very complicated scientific things in a way that your average person could understand or relate to. He was very good about taking very complicated biological and scientific matters and making them easy to understand and relate to our everyday lives. So that's the goal, is to take the two texts, Maya Angelou's Living Well, Living Good, and Lewis Thomas's The Tucson Zoo, and connect them to Of Mice and Men after we take tests on them. So you click on these links; these go to the actual handouts that we've been working with, the notes rather. Let's see, where are they? There we go. You got characteristics of nonfiction. You need to be familiar with what makes an autobiography, what makes a memoir, so on and so forth. We talked about main idea and supporting details this week. We looked at what Maya Angelou's main idea was and how she supported it. And next week, I'm going to give you guys this about text organization. It's available on Classroom. You can do it there. It's on GoFormative as well if you want to go ahead and answer the questions. And we'll talk about all this stuff right here. Okay, let's go. All right, so Living Well, Living Good is a personal essay. And the main idea, we talked about this, is living well is an art which can be developed. And she says that in the text. Like, she explicitly says, that's why this is in quotes, living well is an art which can be developed. And then she just gives us a ton of supporting details as to how we can live well according to Maya Angelou. This is all opinion. And this connects to exercise B on the vocabulary practice handout. You can see I gave you guys one here. This is one that stuck with me. We need to remember that we are creative, and invent new scenarios, and can invent new scenarios as frequently, as they are needed. So in exercise B on the vocabulary practice handout, you can click here and go to the worksheets that we were working on in class. There we go. Let's see, right here, exercise B. You wanted to write a letter to Maya Angelou, dear Maya, dear Miss Angelou, and explain to her which piece of advice is the most meaningful to you and how it connects to your life using 3 out of these 5 vocabulary words. So make sure you've got that turned in. You can do it on a Google Doc and turn it into the assignment, or take a picture of it and connect it to the assignment that way. Either way. We also did this in class where we looked at supporting details that Maya Angelou included that specifically connect to the old couple in the story, and we drew conclusions based upon those details. So from number 1, we could conclude that the old couple is wealthy, they're well off. I think I went over this in a previous video. Okay, so these exercises, oh yeah, participles. I'll do a little video, a separate video going over the correct answers for the participle work. Um, yeah, okay, moving on. Okay, so make sure you get that exercise B done, and that's what I'm taking from the packet of handouts there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about structure. So, Living Well, Living Good is a short memoir, technically, and it's also a personal essay because it's an idea. Maya Angelou has an idea, and she supports it with details, and that's what an essay essentially is. But we want to ask this question. And now, when I was looking at her benchmark scores, I noticed that some of the questions we struggled with weren't about what is the main idea, but rather how does this specific detail, or how does this passage, or how does this paragraph help the author build the main idea, get the point across. And so let's look at how Angelou builds this essay. I want you to think about the fact that writing has purpose. When Angelou wrote this essay, she didn't write it for an assignment. That wasn't the purpose. The purpose was she wanted to show her audience how she thinks that we should live life. Remember, she refers to us as her dears. She says, "My dears." I draw the picture of the wealthy couple standing in a darkened room, peering into a lighted room where black servants were lifting their voices in merriment and camaraderie, and I realized that living well is an art which can be developed. That's the point she wanted to get across. She wanted to teach us a lesson. So she built her essay around that purpose. Now, if you think of a typical 3.5 essay as kind of your basic structure, it'd be kind of like a basic shed, like just four walls and a roof. It gets the job done, but it's not very interesting or creative. And so the goal with writing is to master the tools and materials, like the tools and materials, like being like sentence structure, parts of speech, grammar, participles, gerunds, how to put sentences together, clauses, all that stuff. Master the tools and materials of the English language, and that will allow you to get creative. Instead of building basic sheds, you'll be building cathedrals and mansions and all kinds of cool stuff. So it's a metaphor that I've been working with, trying to think about how to talk about structure of writing. So Maya Angelou definitely mastered the materials and tools of the English language. So when she wanted to write this essay, she didn't write a 3.5 essay. What did she do? So she if you think about text organization, you've got four or five major text organizations, and just read the handout here. You look at the bold stuff. You've got sequence, sequential order, and she does that. She tells us a story. The very first part of this essay, she tells us a story about Aunt T. That is sequential order, cause and effect. She didn't really write, hey, this happened, so this happened, but she does say, I draw the picture of the wealthy couple standing in a darkened room. So she tells us kind of like why she told us this story. And the story that Aunt T told her, she says, that story has stayed with me for nearly 30 years. And when a tale remains fresh in my mind, it almost always contains a lesson which will benefit me. The story that Aunt T told Maya Angelou was the cause. This essay is the effect. So there is still cause and effect in this story. All right, compare and contrast. Maya Angelou doesn't really come out and say this is like this and this is different than this because, but she does contrast two different ways to view life. The first part of the essay and the story, she's showing us the way the old couple lives life. In the second part, which is more of a personal essay format, she is, lost my train of thought. She's showing us how she thinks we should live our lives, and those are different. So she is doing a contrast thing here. She's showing us how two things are different, and she's even including a little problem and solution. This isn't explicit. She's not saying, here's a problem, here are three solutions. But she shows us a problem. The problem is with the old couple, and they're not happy. That's the problem. She shows us a solution. All of this stuff, everything she says that we should do to live a life as art, to live a good life, rather, those are the solutions. So if you're not happy, if you have everything in the world but you're not happy, do these things that Maya Angelou says to do. That's kind of her solution. All right, now, so again, you've got two parts of one whole thing here. Part one was Auntie's story about the old couple. The purpose of that was to give us an example of how not to live life. Part two is the personal essay part of the writing, and the purpose is to allow Angelou to express her ideas about the right way to live life. So Stop thinking about nonfiction as only articles and essays and stuff like that. And even if you are thinking of essays, essays don't have to be paragraph one, main idea, support, 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 conclusion. We can get creative. We can start thinking of ways to express ourselves and the ideas that we think are important in ways that are more interesting for your audience, more appropriate for your audience. Okay, if you have any questions, concerns about what you're supposed to have done this week, what you need to be turning in, please email me at walls@mcnary.org or leave a private comment on assignments. I've seen some of you guys going over the GoFormative stuff, so I will post separate videos about the participle review or verbal review and all that kind of stuff a little later today. Yeah, take care, guys. Have a good weekend. Happy Halloween. If you reconnect, I have some Halloween candy that I gave out to the kids yesterday. I guess you could, I don't know, you guys probably have plenty of candy at home. Anyways, have a good one. I'll see you soon.